Hello and welcome to the hearing. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And this week, and without any further ado, on to this week's album. Lost my place there for a minute, which is from 2015, Dromomania by New York Gypsy All-Stars. I think this is the week of long titles. 30 Days of Slime Ball-Orama, New York Gypsy All-Stars. And there's no Wikipedia entry for the band or the album, so I'm pulling this from my site, The Recklist. I did a post about them a couple years ago. New York Gypsy All-Stars are a New York City-based band whose music is a bit difficult to describe. Comprised of clarinetist and bandleader Ishmael Lumanovsky. First off, apologies for any mispronunciations. There are going to be a lot of them this week.
But they're quite entertaining, so, you know.
Qanun player Tamer Pinerboski, bassist and vocalist Panagiotis Andreou, keyboardist Jason Lindor, I'm pretty sure I got that name right, and drummer Engin Günaydin. They mix jazz with the music of the Balkans, adding touches of pop, funk, and even rock along the way to create a sound that is simultaneously exotic, familiar, and above all, completely like anything else. Lumanovsky said, we cover all of the Balkans melodically, and we cover the rest of the world rhythmically and harmonically. The band was initially formed thanks to a chance meeting between Lumanovsky and Andreou, and have released 2 albums to date, 2011's Roman Tech, bit of a play on words, and 2015's Dromomania. In addition to their unique combination of genres, New York Gypsy All-Stars are also notable for their unusual instrumentation. The band's use of clarinet instead of the more typical saxophone brings an old-school element to their music that evokes Dixieland jazz and klezmer. But Lumanovsky coaxes a remarkably full and smooth tone from his instrument. That's unique. That's quite different from the thin, reedy sound commonly associated with it. And of course, the more unconventional part of their lineup is Pinerboski's Qanun. The Qanun is a Turkish zither that uses a series of levers to raise the pitch of the strings. He chooses to play without plectrums, finger picks, which gives him a warmer tone than the instrument's usually known for. And he and Lumanovsky often play in unison, frequently executing fast passages that really create a signature element to their sound. By the way, Dromomania is defined as a compulsion to travel.
Okay.
And of course, reminder, I don't edit any music into the show, so there will be links down in the description to the album on Spotify and YouTube, so you can listen along with us. And starting with the tracks, with track 1, G Street. I can't find liner notes, so I don't know if those are real horns or a synth at the beginning. There's no horn player in the band. They could have. There isn't a singer brought in for another track from outside the band, so they could have brought in other musicians. But the opening groove is very pop.
It begins like they kind of do a fake out. Like you think it's going to be straight up jazz, like in the first few seconds, and then suddenly there's this hip hop beat to it, which makes I guess that's where you get the pop from.
Yeah,
and then
it's subverted again with clarinet and Qanun playing in unison, which is their signature.
Right.
And it's a really interesting sound. And it's this nice angular melody, Balkan-style melody, over this hip-hop rhythm.
Right. And then it goes in there, and you get this brief, muffled Dixieland jazz, and then back to the main theme again.
And there's a break from the melody, I think, may have been a little too long, that second section.
Oh, yeah? I don't think they really did anything in excess on this. I think they
maybe just 1 or 2 repeats.
They hit it and quit. For this one. It's a nice, crisp opening, I thought.
And there's a nice chaotic bit that leads back to that initial melody. And when that melody comes in, there's a nice radio effect on it.
Yeah.
Old school, like makes it sound like it's coming from a tiny little speaker.
Right.
Loved that. On to track 2, American Chochek, and yes, I've looked that up. It's I think a Turkish dance. It's a dance from somewhere in that part of the world. Loved the sort of found percussion beginning on this. It's clarinet and percussion, and it sounds like he's just beating on like corrugated steel. And the clarinet's very thin sounding.
Right.
And it's got this really interesting rhythm to it.
I thought the rock beat was yet another pleasant
Yeah,
surprise.
they go into a chorus that is practically rock with
Right?
this bass and synth.
Like you think you figured it out from the first track, what's going to happen here, but there's still,
Yeah,
there's other
this
dimensions they can
there is
offer.
no figuring this band out. They go every direction at once. And there's a nice ramp up back to the verse, back to the main melody in the second, in verse two.
There was a second instrument that they brought in the second half. I'm not can't remember exactly what it was though, but it does.
On this song,
Yeah, and it was nice how it was broken up, into two different parts like that.
yeah. And then when it finally does come back in, there's this really nice chaotic groove, particularly in the bridge,
Yeah,
and a great kanun solo, very quick, and a nice chaotic ending. It's this interesting mix of this, Balkan, kind of very traditional with this rock and this very chaotic sections. Like some, all of these songs sum the band up very well, but there's one towards the end that does it very
yeah.
nicely. On to track 3, Cloud 9. And the 9 in the title is the reference to the time signature of the main section, which is 9/8.
Okay.
A very unusual time signature, a very
Yeah.
complicated time. Well, not very complicated, but more complicated than most people are used to hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was straight up Herbie Hancock, really. Like they really didn't. This one they didn't venture very far from the beaten path.
Well, because the rhythm is so complicated that they really couldn't do
that
much
explains
else.
it.
And that opening instrument is actually the bass. I've seen a live version of
Yeah.
this. It's not a synthesizer. I mean, it's a synthesized bass. And I loved how the instruments all come in one by one. Starts off with the bass, then they work the drums in, and you've got a little bit of kanun, and then the synth, and then finally
is the canoe the instrument that kind of gives it that ethnic flair that they're looking? Yeah,
it's
I
that
did
high
like
kind of
that
picked,
here.
mandolin, kind of similar to a mandolin. Yeah,
Okay.
In sound, it's kind of similar to a mandolin. It's a flat instrument with a lot of strings on it.
I think I've seen one of these played, and it was just like I forgot what was it called again?
Kanun. There are a lot of similar instruments. They're called zithers, and it's basically a harp on a box, and it's laid flat.
I think I've seen one of these, and we're just like, what the fuck?
And it's got levers that can raise the pitch of the note.
Yeah, I think I've seen. It is a very
really fascinating instrument. I
would
love to play around with one. The main sections of this is a 9/8. I have no idea what the time signatures are, and the rest of it, I've tried to count them. And I love the way that there's the third section builds right back into that opening.
Yeah.
And again, when that comes back, great variations on the drums and clarinet. This is classic jazz, where they kind of restate an idea, but put these little variations into it. And again, nice melody on the kanun. It's got almost like a little solo on the kanun. Not exactly a solo because it's a repeated melody, but right before they bring the clarinet back in. And go ahead.
Because this doesn't stray that far, kind of.
Yeah, there's not much else to say about it.
Yeah, it doesn't do it for me as much as the earlier ones, but
Okay, so another departure from their existing the sound that they've established with these three. Track 4, Melandia. This one is the first incident of vocals on the album.
Right, and it's like
it's kind of I don't know if they're actual words or if he's just kind of scatting. It has a nice little rhythmic element to it.
Right, it comes across as a rap. You're right, though. For all we know, it could be just meaningless because it is another or it's another language. Because my notes is, I wonder what language the rap is in.
He's just kind of saying something very rhythmically, kind of play against the rhythm of the song. This is another case where there may have been a guest musician because in the beginning there's something that sounds like a violin leading into the main melody.
I'm surprised I haven't heard of these guys though, because there is such a Balkan population in this city. It's crazy, and that's why I've seen that instrument that we're talking about played. Just like in a coffee shop, and there's going to be musicians here. Okay, I guess it's going to be boring. Wait, what the fuck is that he's taking out?
And it's about it fits on his lap, but it's maybe, it's maybe like 3 feet long by like.
I think what we saw was even bigger though, and it was just it was like the size of a pool table. It was nuts. I don't know what it was exactly.
I would love to play around with those. And just to getting back to Melandia, I love the percussion. I guess they're probably just toms, but they've got a
Yeah.
nice kind of metallic sound to them toward the end. And there's a great drum solo.
Yeah, I just remember rhythm section for this, and yeah, with the rap going underneath it, it works. It
And
definitely works.
and everybody gets to show off pretty much except the rhythm section for most part. But this is just
Yeah.
a nice rare moment of that where there's this big drum solo.
Oh, the rhythm section is really key
Oh
to
yeah,
this.
yeah.
I mean, it is
They keep
the
everything going.
it is the root to it. I mean, the ethnic flair is
Mm-hmm.
kind of, something to draw in, but
Yeah,
everything is that bass player, you
yeah.
know?
The bass player and the drummer, yeah, and the keyboardist is kind of just an addition.
Yeah.
I should say I'm pretty sure Jason Lindor, the keyboardist, has left the band since this album.
Oh yeah.
Because I think they're a four-piece now with extra musicians. I would love to hear them do something without keys, just the four of them. Because I feel like the keys maybe fill in. They add a little too much that I would love to hear the other instruments take up. Yeah, they can kind of get away
Yeah.
with things because they have a keyboard player. Again, back to
It
the
is the
album.
weird instruments that we want to hear,
Exactly. Back to the album. Another complete departure, track 5. And again, apologies for the mispronunciation. I'm gonna base this on what it sounds like in the song Maraosh. I have no idea what language this is in or who sings it. It's this
Right.
kind of medieval or Middle Eastern sounding ballad, which starts with just vocals and electric piano, which is an interesting contrast with a Middle Eastern sound.
Right.
It's
It really is straight up smooth jazz in this
Yeah.
one. Like they're not even Herbie Hancock,
it gets real poppy once the clarinet and kanun come in.
So yeah, this would get my pick for the
Yeah.
weakest track on here.
Well, I think it's second for me. I also think the snare is a bit too loud. It just gets a little distracting. Back to the interesting stuff. Track 6,
Yes.
Happy Feet.
And now for something completely different.
This one opens with what is basically a gang vocal.
Like, were you expecting ska?
It's a bunch of guys just kind of singing something in unison. Probably the band, just all the band members. Panagiotis Andrea, the bass player, handles most of the vocals. He's the one who did the rap on Melandia. But yeah, they just kind of try to sing this little melody at the beginning.
Because if you're expecting Eastern European ska, you're correct.
It's basic. It sounds very klezmer to me. If you know what klezmer music is, it's Jewish music, usually played at weddings. It sounds like that. And the clarinet and the kanun kind of chase each other throughout the melody.
Right. Oh yeah, there's just so much going on here.
And then it goes into this big kind of anthemic chorus.
Right.
And then nice variation when it comes back to the main melody, very jazz again. It's the same rhythm, which the title sums up. Forget not in reference to the movie, but it's this nice upbeat melody.
Well, yeah, this is like something you don't need to focus on entirely. That it occupies the right parts of your brain.
Right, exactly.
That free up the rest of your brain to like think of other things. It's really a solid track.
There's this really interesting part where you keep this nice happy upbeat major key rhythm, and then the bass, not the bass, the clarinet goes kind of minor.
Yeah,
it sounds kind of sad for a while, which is really interesting.
Well, yeah, that is kind of some of the music from that country. It's like you think that's supposed to be sad, and yet they're playing it in such a beat way, but it's still sad.
And then it gets really interesting at the end.
Yeah.
Because it goes almost reggae. It sounds a bit like the Police.
Well, right. Like I said, they started with like it's definitely a ska.
Yeah, it's a similar ska. You're right. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
And then they go straight up reggae towards the end.
And then they bring back the gang vocals.
Yes.
On to track 7, Chaotica, a song that truly lives up to its name.
Well, I was thinking it didn't sound very chaotic at all, but
really, okay.
I mean, I did pick up on the second time around the Les Claypool inspiration of the bass.
It starts off with the slap bass with this weird effect on it that makes it almost sound kind of like a rubber band.
Yeah.
And there's some really nice syncopation, and then some video game sound effects. There's a keyboard that sounds like a video game.
Well, I mean, you get that slower break.
Yeah, nice mellow section. With still some nice fast work on the kanun and the bass clarinet. And then what sounds like an accordion solo. Probably a synthesizer.
I like the brief flute that got worked in there somewhere.
Was there a flute? It could have been.
I think so.
Okay,
It sounded like a flute somewhere
didn't.
in the back of all of that, and then that
Okay,
was
if it's
right
in the
before it
background, I may have
picked
missed
up
it. Yeah.
again.
And then a couple of the accordion or synthesizer, whatever it is, solo, a nice fast hectic clarinet solo.
Definitely a squeeze box sound
Mhm.
to it. I don't know if it's if it was
And
synth or.
then a really trippy canoon solo. Like the rhythm and the tone just seem to not quite fit, but in a really interesting way. And then there's just a little clarinet solo out. And now on to track 8, my pick for the weakest of the album, Scarlet. We start off with these vocals that are basically every Latin pop song from the 90s. It's spoken in Spanish.
It is this. It's like this slow jam thing. Yeah, It sounded like it was in Spanish, which was
Yeah,
very
I think
confusing.
all of the lyrics are in Spanish. And then it goes into what is basically soft jazz. Nothing weird or interesting about it. It's kind of relaxing. Um, but then Latin pop guy comes back and sings in Spanish.
So yeah, I mean, I'd see how you'd pick this one too. I mean,
Mhm.
this would be
Yeah, I
second
mean,
for me. I just kind of liked it better
uh-huh.
than Mud Hush.
And then there's this weird harmonized vocal that was really unsettling at the end.
Yeah, I think that's why I like this a little better because there are some more things going on in this than just
Uh,
it's not a straightforward
yeah,
slow jam.
right.
There are some weird things still going on.
Yeah. Uh, On to track 9. Now, on Zombie Takeout, we frequently talk about Planet 70s. This is where the album goes to Planet 70s. Because there's this very 70s pop rhythm with like electric piano, but with the qanun and clarinet over top of it. A lot of more great genre bending. Then it gets a little chaotic, and then we're back to the 70s. Just a really nice, solid groove.
It kind of they were bordering on like Weather Channel music at this one, but there's that ethnic flair though that does
Mhm.
bring it up, and some good bass
Yeah.
playing too in this track.
And finally, track 10, Romantic 2. Title is a reference to their first album. This one starts off soft jazz, but then it goes very interesting.
It's like a Gypsy LCD sound system or Daft Punk kind of thing.
Because it starts off with soft jazz, and then there's some nice stabs from the qanun, and then the riff kind of fades in, and it's this
Actually,
nice fast clarinet riff.
it's very reminiscent of the Disco Biscuits.
Okay, haven't heard them.
A very strong similarity to them.
But
Yeah, this would definitely be my pick for the strongest track.
I don't know which my favorite is, because I mean everything but those two I really like. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard call. If I guess offhand, American Chowchak. I just love that beginning. But yeah, this one's great. A nice fast riff comes in from that smooth jazz, and fast clarinet and qanun. Great contrast to it, which are a great contrast to the electric piano. And then we get a very 80s synth section
Yeah.
in the second part of the song, and then somewhere in the middle it goes very disco.
Like I'd say this is more chaotic than Chaotica.
Yeah, true.
Because there's just like, wait, what's happening now?
Yeah, this is the song I said really explains kind of sums up what the band does.
Right.
They go from soft jazz to the Balkan qanun and clarinet thing, which is their signature, and then it's 80s synths, and then it goes disco for a while.
It feels like they crammed a few centuries worth of music into about 3 or 4 minutes.
And then in the disco section, it's just keyboards, bass, and drums. There's
Right?
no clarinet or qanun. And then it goes back to the 80s. And then there's this really nice kind of shiver on the electric piano at the very end. It
Yeah.
just hits this kind of atonal thing that just kind of sends a shiver up your spine. This band is like nothing I've ever heard. They're one of a kind. I absolutely recommend it.
I recommend it. Yeah, if you're looking for like a different kind of jazz, this is definitely something you'd want to check out.
All right, that's it for Dromomania by the New York Gypsy All Stars. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, which will be 2 weeks from now. No, I'm sorry. This is this is confusing. Just to explain, we're taking a week off. Well, we took last week off from the hearing.
When will then be now?
And this week, instead of recording the hearing, we're banking this because the week you're hearing this, we didn't record a hearing. We banked some Mullane episodes.
Yeah.
And so there will be a hearing next week. When will then be now? When we'll be reviewing Seeds by TV on the Radio.
Oh, nice. I haven't listened to that album in a long time.
Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.